Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another edition of the Wayne Public Library Virtual Jazz Series. My name is Patty Slezak, and I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to chat with the wonderful bassist, McSweeney. So welcome.
Thanks, Patty, for asking me to do this.
I've been really excited. We had the great opportunity to meet last fall at the New Jersey Jazz Society concert in Madison, New Jersey, when it was to highlight the scholarship winners. And boy, that was a really great ensemble there with Don Braden and Alvester Garnett and David O'Rourke. It was really a very special day. So that was my introduction to you, and I enjoyed it immensely. I look forward to actually hearing you perform more in the future. But I just want to talk about a little bit. We can go a little chronologically here, how you got started. I understand that you were quite young when you were introduced to music at the age of 5. And you started on piano, and then at 8 you moved to violin to strings. And it was when you were in your teens that you fell in love with the acoustic bass. And what made you fall in love with the acoustic bass at that time?
Well, the main event that happened to me, I had already been playing electric bass for a couple years because I saw this violinist friend of mine playing the electric bass and violin, and I was like, that's cool. And my teacher said, could you do that? So I had been playing the electric bass, and then my band director and his family said, you want to go to the Concord Jazz Festival? And I was like, yeah. And my parents let me go, which was a big deal because I wasn't really allowed to go anywhere ever. Not much, especially when it came to jazz. So they took me to the Concord Jazz Festival, and something hit me hard. What was I, 14 or something? I'm watching Ray Brown. It was called the LA Four, okay? And Ray Brown was playing, and I thought, what are they doing here? They're laughing, they're talking to each other, they're yelling at each other on stage, they're just having a blast, okay? And I thought, I can't do that as a violinist. I was also a classical pianist, but this is not how the world I know really operates. And I want to do that. That's what happened to me. And and my teachers handed me the upright bass one day, and I thought, this is what I want to do. But I couldn't really break it to my family because my mother had sunk in all this time and money into my lessons, and I was pretty good. I was the concert master of the youth symphony. I was also playing piano concertos with the youth symphony. So I said it's a hobby. Don't worry about it. It's temporary. So that's how that went.
You must have been introduced to jazz then at a young age as well as classical and other types of music. What grabbed you at that age is jazz?
The freedom. I think the freedom, the groove, the community, the what I was seeing and hearing on stage. The music was going, and they're looking at each other, and they're having a great time. I thought this is something that I don't do, as a classical player. I mean, I'm trying to have a good time, but it was tough. Uh, Very strict. It wasn't my personality either. And I thought, I want to try this. And I loved playing with others. That was super fun and kind of impromptu. It was scary because I was used to reading music, but it was so fun to just, sit with my friends in the band room, listen to jazz, which my band director had tons of albums. My father loved Cal Jader, and we had Cal Jader albums in the house. Very rare were they put on, like when my mother was not around, because she was like, that's too loud, I don't like the drums. I was just like, okay. And my aunt, like, one day came over with like a Duke Ellington album, an Ella Fitzgerald album. And I thought, I love this stuff. I don't know what's happening here, but I just love it. I really didn't understand it. I just knew I loved it. I was drawn to it right away at a very Like 'cause it was immediate. It was like love at first hear, you know.
You talk about Duke Ellington, who actually used a lot of classical motifs in his music. Is that something you connected to at that time, possibly without knowing it?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I was again just like I am now, and at this age, I'm all over the place. So I love classical music. I love Beethoven. I appreciate how people can take a Chopin piece and bring those chord changes over. I mean, I was hearing that, and I had teachers who, you know, we sat down and we listened to music. So there was that was I think it was a lot of connecting early on, not knowing what would happen. Because in a million years, I would never have thought I would be a professional bass player.
So with your is playing electric and acoustic, and you also play a fretless electric bass as well as one with frets. Do you have a preference between them? Does it depend on the music? What draws you to choose one over the other?
Well, I mean, I grew up listening to Jaco Pastorius and Weather Report. He came to my hometown, and I mean, the band Weather Report came to my hometown, and then he came to my hometown with his other band called uh, Word of Mouth. And so he had ripped out all the frets on his electric bass. And I love the sound of it. So what I do now currently is just like, you know, I try and keep them the electric, the fretted electric, the fretted fretless, and my, you know, all my basses up to speed because I could be called at any time to play them on whatever. Sometimes I'll make a suggestion. Oh, I hear fretless on that if somebody is hiring me for original recording. Um, you know, yeah, so it depends on the music. The music kind of determines the choice. I don't really, do I prefer any of them? I don't know. I just think the bass is fun.
There's no favorite child, right?
No, there's no favorite. It's like, oh, this will be good for that project, for that style. Yeah.
If you found that you were playing electric guitar, bass, excuse me, for a while, and then you pick up the acoustic, you're like, "Oh, I missed you." Like, do you have that kind of? I know it's a kind of rudimentary question, but it shows a affinity for one over the other.
Yeah, I do. I do have that. I have that right now actually because I'm actually recovering from a knee injury. So I couldn't play the upright bass for the last 6 weeks. And I have a jazz festival this weekend, so I just got cleared by my surgeon that I can do this because I couldn't stand that long without crutches. So now I'm cleared. I have 2 days to get my chops together. And I'm really excited about it though. Like, so yes, I do miss it, but I miss the electrics when I don't play them as well because it's just fun.
Which festival are you playing in?
I'm at the Scranton Jazz Festival this weekend. It's their 20th year. My husband's going to be there as well. He's a valve and slide trombone player, Mike Fawn, and I'm playing with him or he's playing with me on Saturday night. And then the next morning I'm playing oh, I am playing at a place called Posh with Vanessa Rachi. She's a singer, and Ron Swansky, who's an amazing, he lives in Jersey. He's an amazing organist, pianist, everything. I'm gonna be playing with the Scranton Jazz Festival Big Band as a guest on Sunday evening. So yeah, I'm really excited because I haven't really been out lately that much. I did do 2 tunes on the upright bass the other day, but I had assistance with this. Yeah.
I think the weather will also be a little bit better. Just to document in this interview, we've been experiencing quite a heat wave here. And in fact, in New Jersey today, there's a flood alert for the state. So I think by the weekend, you should be good. So,
I heard we're gonna be good. Yeah, we have these crazy storms that come through here in the Bronx. I mean, they're very like intense and quick, and trees just get uprooted, and all sorts of weird stuff happens.
so when you were 16, you were chosen to play at the Monterey Jazz Festival with the all-star band fronted by Thad Jones and Mel Lewis. What a great opportunity for you, and tell me more about that experience.
All right, so my teacher at the time encouraged me to audition for this, and I had only been playing the upright bass not that long. I had blisters, and I got to be the runner-up. And the guy who won the chair fell off a roof and broke his wrist. So I was up, and and I thought, okay, I guess I'm going. I had one friend who, a female trumpet player, her and I were chosen. So we went together. It was really, really special and very, very intense, because we were playing 8 hours a day. I didn't have the chops. I was, I had there was a picture of me in the paper in the Monterey Peninsula News, and I had wrapped tape all over my fingers, and I was, in a sweater. We were playing outside. It was awesome, but I'll never ever forget that, because I got to play with Mel Lewis, even though he didn't really want to play with the kids. He was very cranky. And but I'll never forget the groove and what that felt like. And I thought, yeah, I like this. I want to do this. And Thad Jones was completely amazing, great educator, very sweet. But Mel was like Mr. Cranky Pants or something. And it kind of scared me, I have to tell you, as a 16-year-old girl. I had to, toughen up a little bit to that.
I'm surprised to hear that because Thad Jones and Mel Lewis are kind of known for their association with William Patterson and education and such, but maybe you hit the nail on the head where you said it's really more Thad Jones. So,
Maybe, I don't know. Like, I don't know how that worked with Mel. I just know that he wanted to work only, he said at one point to the other bass player that was there, who was a pro, "Hey man, you should play on this one." And the pro said, "No, this is her tune." So, I'll never forget that, because when you're 16 and then, I was a girl and it's all boys, I had to navigate that. And it wasn't easy. I mean, it was a highlight of my life. And also there was some really interesting low points of me having to keep it together to kind of like march through this stuff.
well, let's talk about women in jazz. And I'm curious as to if at this time now, are there more opportunities for women than there was in the past? How do you feel about that?
Okay, well, I feel a couple things. I think there's more women teachers. So, I've been mentoring young women for a long time now, and they're up and coming, these bass players, and I'm really proud of them. And so I think there is more opportunity. However, I do sometimes see the list of people at a jazz festival, well-known jazz festivals, and there's not one female band leader. There might be one female singer band leader, and that's cool. Nothing against that. But there's a lot of great instrumentalists out there that have great projects. And it's, back in the day when I was growing up, I was put in bands because I was female. Not even really, I guess they liked my playing, I'm not even sure, but there was no one else that could do it. Like in LA, there might have been one other female bass player in that entire city that was a jazz player in the 80s. So, I played with an all-female band. I didn't really want to play with all-female bands. I wanted just to play, period. good music. But that's what happened. And I needed to work. I needed to put myself through school. Um, I do appreciate, that band for the amazing opportunities that I got. There was a little group that came out of the Maiden Voyage big band called the Jazz Birds. I don't know if I put that on any of my stuff, but Stacy Rolls was one of the leaders. She's Jimmy Rolls' daughter. And Betty O'Hara played, she's like a multi-instrumentalist. She played this little tiny, what do they call it? A toy trumpet. She played valve trombone. She played the euphonium. So,
I just have to interrupt. That's three different size mouthpieces with three different embouchures. That's really incredible.
I know she was incredible, and I learned a lot from them. They gave me opportunities to start arranging for them, for the band. We played at some really cool jazz festivals. I kind of learned to, I just learned a lot with them, traveling with them, and they were a lot older than me, and so they were kind of mentoring me. But that was very rare at that time. Like probably they're the only ones, like back in the day. But now there's more opportunities, yes. But here's the other part B to that. In general, in jazz, there's not as many. So like the opportunity shrunk, and there's more people out there, and that's maybe another conversation. And the talent is amazing. I find the talent amazing, and there's just not enough places for people to play and to really make a proper living. You know, that's my 2 cents on that.
You mentioned the different festivals, and you're right. If I think about how many are female-led on the roster versus male, I have to say Saratoga Springs Jazz Festival, where I try to go every year, does have maybe they're doing a little bit better job than other festivals. I mean, Cindy Blackman and Bria Skonberg, and most recently, twice Samara Joy performed, and there do seem to be a little bit more, and they're broadening out their type of music as well there. But yeah, it's Artemis played, again this year, which is great, and it's exciting. But you're right, the majority seem to be led by men. So
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that Saratoga is doing that. I won't mention the other festivals. That's not the point, but there's just some have no women at all. And I find that like, really, guys? I'm like, because I don't know how many of these festivals are actually the artistic directors are men or women. I don't know. I've never really looked into that. And I don't think it should be, a majority of women. I mean, I don't know. I think it just needs to even out a little bit more than it is. I think people are trying, and I do appreciate that. I noticed the young men that I work with are, maybe it's because I'm older. I don't know. There's a lot more respect now. I don't know. It could be because I'm older and that I'm not young, but I could barely get into a jam session ever unless I was introduced to the person leading the session by my husband back in the day. Like there was just a no-go on it, Once they heard me play, then I'd be like, okay, you're okay, Yeah, I think it needs a little, I think the business needs a little work.
and just thinking actually about two music schools and the amount of female faculty, as you had said that there are more, I still think it's a majority of male faculty even. Um, do you think young girls are drawn to this field and feel discouraged, or aren't encouraged, or it's just the nature of the beast that there are men and women, and whoever's going to be the best will rise to the top?
I don't know. I mean, I find out that I find that there's women that can outplay certain men, and they're not going to get the recognition at all. Like, it's not going to happen because it's still a club. You know, you hire people that look like you know what I mean? It's just it just happens. So I don't really focus on that. You know, as a musician, I if I did, I probably would have quit like 35 years ago. But I focus on, you know, oh great, I'm playing this weekend. It's in Scranton, and I'm gonna, you know, play with all these people, and I'm gonna, you know, do my best to introduce myself to people I don't know, and, you know, get inspiration from it and feel grateful. Like, I don't really live in like a resentment thing, but I do find that the people running the shows are mostly men, meaning the shows even at schools.
I do have to give a little shout out to some of the people who are running different jazz venues or series in New Jersey. There seem to be several of us who are women, which I'm very happy to say. I have my jazz series here at the library, and I work also in conjunction with Our Lady of Consolation Church with Kaylin Cardello and Johnny Giddings. We have that series collaboration. Kath Older is doing great things down in the Weehawken area. Lynn Mueller is doing great things. Metuchen. Of course, Cindy Halpin is the president of the New Jersey Jazz Society. So, you know, we all try to keep in touch with each other and kind of support one another and make sure that we're not scheduling concerts at the same dates and do what we can for it. But it was interesting that we realized that there are about 5 of us that are all working in the New Jersey area.
Oh, I'm so happy to know that. Wow. I should like submit my band to you guys, because I had, you know, I'm ready to roll. I got a couple, 2 or 3 projects ready to go, you know.
Speaking of your project, the music that you heard at the beginning of this interview is a new project you're working on, and that's with Cheryl Bailey. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Cheryl Bailey is an amazing guitarist. She's also the chair up at Berklee School of Music in the guitar department, co-chair. And she is somebody I've known since we both got to New York, maybe 30 years ago. And we've been playing together ever since. We're both Tauruses. And she asked me to co-lead or co-write with her. So we both wrote pieces. We wrote 6 pieces for this project, and we have Austin McMahon from Boston on drums, Mike Fawn, my husband, on valve and slide trombone, and Jerry Bergonzi on saxophones. So, and then Cheryl plays guitar, I play bass, and we wrote the music, and we did it all ourselves, and it's a great project. It's so much fun. We did a gig at Smalls that's recorded. We did a fun little tune. I'm really on this Mingus kick, so I did a song for birthday song for Mingus called Happy Birthday Mingus, and I got the whole audience involved in singing this melody, not the regular Happy Birthday melody, but this other melody. We did that, and I love the project. I also have a project that I did a few months ago. Elio Villafranca, do you know him? He's a Grammy Award-winning pianist. Great guy, great piano player, composer, but he played with me at the McSweeney Plays Mingus project. So that's another one. And then I have my Fado music, which is all dedicated to my great-great-grandparents from the Azores who immigrated here in the middle 1850s. Without them, I wouldn't be here at all. But I really fell in love with this music that came from Portugal. And because I was in Portugal at the Seychelles Jazz Festival, and I heard a lot of great jazz, great people, but I wanted to know what their blues was, you know, and it's definitely Fado. So I got inspired and wrote a whole album worth of that. That took about 10 years.
Yeah, the song that is at the beginning of this interview is called Tourist Mode.
Yeah, tourist mode. Yeah. Yep, that's right.
I'm gonna at the end of the this interview will be the entire song, so you can hear that. So let's talk a little bit about all the many hats you wear. I frequently do this in my interviews, and so you are a bassist, you are a composer, an arranger, an educator, and producer. Am I missing any hats there?
I don't know. No, I think you got it. I feel like there's another hat or two, but I don't.
So let's talk about your composing and your arranging, because you all you do so for jazz, but you also do orchestrations and have I have a notation here that you have played also for renowned conductors, Leonard Bernstein, Lalo Schifrin, and John Williams. Can we just hop to right to that? What those experiences were like? I can't imagine. Wow.
Yeah. So when I was 22 or 23, or maybe a little younger, I auditioned for this orchestra in Los Angeles called the Debut Symphony Orchestra. And when you hit 26, they throw you right out of there. And so I won the audition, and it was a pro orchestra. They paid us, we did gigs, we did these galas, and we had guest conductors. And here comes John Williams, Lenny, as they call him. I mean, he was just so funny and so cute. He had the best personality. He was so bubbly, and he made you just want to play good, because he was just fun, you know. Um, it was kind of, it seemed unreal at the time. Lalo Schifrin, who just passed away, may he rest in peace. He was a really sweet person. He joined the orchestra as one of the conductors because I think he had really wanted to hone his conducting, because he was a pianist and composer, successful, but really, it gave him the opportunity to, we went on the road together. Did we go to, I just remember bus rides. I'm not sure if he was on that Mexico trip, but anyway, this is a long
Everybody has that Mexico trip, right?
Was he on that Mexico trip? I don't know, but we all got really sick on that Mexico trip. Oh my God. We played with the Mexico City Symphony. Our symphony played with their symphony. So I had all these chops, like classical chops. And at the same time, I'm like doing jazz gigs on the side the whole time, and being in school. It was a lot. It was almost too much. Like putting myself through college, gigging, keeping that job, keeping my commitments, homework. My teachers are very demanding. They were great, but demanding. Yeah.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Cal State Northridge. Yeah. I first went to San Jose State, and they fired my bass teacher. So I said, I'm out of here.
I
Yeah.
got my master's at San Jose State for library science.
Oh, yeah. Right. Wow. Interesting. So I was there for 2 years, and I played in the symphony. I was actually a piano major at the time, but I was still doing jazz gigs. And they hired Frank Tusa, who used to play with Richie Byrack. And I was like so excited to have a New York, bass teacher. And then I think a year later, they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to have him anymore. I'm like, well, why would I even stay at the school then? So I left.
Maybe he turned 26 and he was out.
That's funny. Yeah. You're 26 years old. We don't care. Happy birthday. You're gone.
Ageism at 26. Who knew, right?
I know. It's really true.
So let's talk about your working on Broadway. And when I had the great pleasure of talking with Pete McGinnis, who cut his chops doing Broadway shows, Carl Latham as well, Alvester Garnett are all still currently playing shows. You've been in 45 different Broadway shows. What is that experience like? Because if I'm not mistaken, it's also regimented like classical music. And boy, you got to, as Pete said, with the when you're coming up the line, you got to prove yourself and hold your own, or these guys are who have been there forever going to get rid of you.
Yeah, so here's my thing. I've been doing shows even as a violinist way back when I was in high school. I was used to playing in the junior college in my hometown of Aptos. There was always a musical every year, and I played I played not bass, I played violin in the orchestra, you know. And so and my mother was into musicals, so it was around. It's not something I really wanted to do or thought I could do or ever would think I would go to Broadway. That was not on my radar, but I had all this. And when I was in LA, I did a lot of regional theater, and I never thought anything of it. But when it was time to come to New York, I had an opportunity to play that show Tommy by The Who. Now that's a whole other skill set of electric bass chops, because you got to sound like John Entwistle, or at least something like him. And the guy that I was subbing for, who gave me the opportunity, which was a miracle, really, because without him, it would have been a really tough, hard road for me to. There was no women in the rhythm sections in the 90s in New York. Like maybe one other, maybe, I'm not sure. So yeah, it kind of fell into my lap, and I had already had the experience. So it wasn't like a huge jump. Subbing is one of the hardest things you can do in music, period. You probably talk to these guys about this. You not only have to show up and nail it, because you're expendable. If you don't nail it, it could be bye-bye, in that one time after putting in hours and hours into practicing.
And you don't even have to be 26.
There. No, they'll throw you out at any age. No. It's a tough biz. Some people, that's what they want to do. They love it. They love that kind of high pressure stuff. I think part of me does love high pressure less today than I did 15 years ago. But right now I'm currently subbing on 4 shows, or is
Wow.
it might be down to 3. I don't know. I'm supposed to sub on 5, but I think it's too much. Yeah, and I'm at their beck and call. So I have to have, that's why I'm saying, like, I always have to have my electrics, my upright bass, my bowing all together all the time, because I could be called for any of these things at the last minute. That's what subs are for. But in the last 6 years, throughout the pandemic and before, I was working steady shows. So I was working at Girl from the North Country. I was on stage in a costume, and I had like, bits and stuff. And that was all the music of Bob Dylan. And then I did a show called Some Like It Hot, which was amazing. Music by Mark Shaman. We won the Grammy for our cast album, which I'm very proud of. And that was a really, really hard show to play. It was an amazing amount of music in a short amount of time. It's fine if it's a one-off or it's a weekend, but this is consistently 8 shows a week, and most of us had, like, trumpet players were icing their faces, I was constantly having to get massages, and it was like a whole thing, PT, the whole. And then I went on to a show called Water for Elephants. That was really cool with, and so that lasted a while. And now I'm just freelancing and writing, and I actually wrote 2 musicals in the last 2 years. I didn't ever think I'd write a musical, but my sister-in-law, who's an amazing book writer and lyricist, came to me and said, "You want to write the music to this?" And I'm like, okay. I don't know how, but okay. So I've been doing that.
You're not the first person I've talked to who's been given an opportunity, like, okay, I don't really know, but all right, well, and then that's kind of how life sometimes works in music, where you don't know until you've got it, and then you make it, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, I mean, with all the skills, after all these years of being around that kind of music and I, it's in there. I've been a composer since I was a kid, so
We were talking about writing for musicals, so
yeah, so that's a different kind of writing because you have to land on certain rhymes, and I was like, I knew this, but I was like, having to do it is a different thing. It's a very different thing.
so the book was already done, so you had the lyrics, and you're basically writing the music to
Yeah,
fit that.
she sends me the lyrics, she taps them out, she tells me some inspirations about what she's thinking, and she's actually a really good singer and actress herself, and very, very funny. We're just doing comedy here, farce stuff, because it was in the middle of the pandemic when she approached me, and I was like, I can't do things that are, I cannot do things that are dark and sad right now, and because that time was pretty rough for musicians. So yeah, we have a reading of our new piece this weekend in LA. And it's a musical for kids about lice called Lousy.
That's awesome.
And
That's
there's
really
some little
awesome.
jazzy things, and Lousy is like a little jazzy kind of New Englandy lady, you know.
Sounds like a perfect picture book too. I think you need to develop this. It'll be
Ooh.
a big hit in libraries.
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea is that it might be done in libraries because it's only four actors. And I don't know orchestration wise. I think it's going to be a small group. I don't know. Haven't figured that. We're not that far yet. We need to hear it and see it done, which I will probably by Monday. And then we'll probably rewrite some stuff and tighten it up, and maybe it'll be ready to go to libraries. That's the idea.
So when you're given the task to then write your music, do you have a certain freedom to draw on any types of genres you like? What's coming to mind is something like Hadestown, which took a lot of 1930s jazz and New Orleans jazz and folk music, and kind of made this amalgam of a wonderful orchestration. It's one of my favorite musicals, in fact, of recent years. So do you have that same freedom, or do you want to have that kind of idea?
With the stuff I've been writing with Jenny, she kind of informs me. She'll like give me the 411 on what she's feeling and what she needs, and I'll try and give that to her. So if that means, uh, I mean, our first musical is called Snip Happens, okay, and it's about a bris, and it's a relationship between a mother and the daughter, and things get crazy. There's like a really bad storm, and people get stuck in the storm, and anyway. So I wrote, like, I used to play in a klezmer band, so klezmer informs me on that at certain times but some of it's pop related, you know, groove related. Some of it is not. Um, it's kind of all over the place, depending on the lyrics and where she wants to go with that. Yeah. Does that answer your
It
question?
does, yeah, yeah. I'm always curious with composers, what are you drawing on, and is it solely one genre, or really kind of whatever comes in your ears and through your brain? I find that the act of composing absolutely fascinating.
It is fascinating, and it is a mix, I would say, for me. I'm not just doing this one type of thing, and I don't have a formula at all. In fact, I wish I did because it would be easier. But everything's just like, oh, she wants that here. Maybe there'll be something like more of an operatic kind of thing that goes into a groove, because of what's happening and what's driving the story. It's really what drives the story too, you know. It's been a learning process. Let's just say that.
So when you're doing other types of arranging and orchestrations, whether it's for well, let's go in the jazz field. Who comes to mind is I want to talk about Mary Lou Williams. Is she an inspiration to you because you're starting as a classical musician and going real hardcore into jazz? Do you find that influence of both genres coming together kind of the way Mary Lou Williams was able to? And she also had a lot of gospel and church kind of background as well.
I love her. I love her music. I listen to her shows. I wish I could have played with her. I mean, I had friends going on her show and I'm like, oh my God, how cool. So yes, she was definitely an inspiration. Mary Lou Williams too. I would say for me, like being a jazz musician, blues informs me a lot. Like that's like the basics. Even on this musical I've been writing about the lice, there's some like a lot of blues elements in there. I believe that's like the roots, you know, of where I start sometimes. But then I can like fuse it with other things. I can fuse it with other styles, or I mean, we have at our fingertips all sorts of you know, we have the stuff on our computer now. You know, we have grooves that we can call up. I have an app with famous drummers grooves on in certain things that I get inspired by. You know, it's called Drum Genius. It's a really cool app. It's like the real deal. And sometimes I won't listen to any of that, and I might just hit some chords on the piano and like hear a melody like that, even just like a chord of whatever, and something will come out of that. So depending on the day and what's going on. Yeah.
So what you're working on with these projects, it reminds me, is like you're the next level of Electric Company and Schoolhouse Rock and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. You know, all that great jazz that we all grew up on as kids, and you're helping to propagate that still. So that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I wrote, you know, I co-wrote with another book writer and lyricist. We did 3 other children's shows for the Bronx Arts Ensemble, and we went to libraries and we performed it. I mean, it was an interesting orchestration. It was bass, viola, and cello. Okay, and because that's what the grant required, and I'm like, okay, I've never really done that, but let's make it happen. And we did. It was very successful, and we did 3.
So let's talk also a little bit about your being an educator. I have the philosophy that you have on your website, and I always love it when educators put their philosophy or what they're bringing to the table on available to the public. And you have music is joyful, fun, and takes work. The more work you put into it, the more you get out of it. Grooving is the most important element of jazz. Construct a lesson plan that is for the individual. How do you approach your students, and do you teach all ages? And let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I do teach all ages. I want to give back because I got lucky with my teachers, I have to say. I'm pretty much trying to just pass it on. Ray Brown did that. I went to his master classes. He taught me for a little while, which was like shocking. Yeah, it blew my mind. But he was, you know, he was like, he said, if you practice this stuff, I'll only charge you $30 if you come back, you know, but if you haven't practiced this and you come back, it's $60. Now, in the 80s, for me as a student, broke, $60 was like $300. Do you know what I mean? So I did what he said. Are you kidding? my students, like I was at the middle school jazz academy for a long time when they had a program there that was amazing for kids. It was a scholarship program for kids who couldn't afford, they would never be able to afford any music lessons ever. So they could be like barely could play, but if they had the support and they wanted to be there, we took them in. And it was kind of an amazing process. Um, One of my students just actually helped me out at a gig the other day. She's 22 now. I met her when she was 13. So cute that she called me up. She's a really good bass player. Really proud of her. She came to help me out because I had just had surgery on my knee and I was like, I think I need an assist. And it was just so nice to connect with her. But right now, so I'm looking at what she needs now, currently, at a 22-year-old who has a day job right now, who wants to only play the bass and work all the time. So I look at her and I form lesson plans about for what she needs to do in order to be a pro out there. And so that's kind of what I do. I like assess a student. I see what they need, what they want to do. I ask them what their goals are. And then I design like lessons for them. I mean, sometimes I have method books that I recommend, but sometimes we won't do that. I'll just write everything down, like on paper, depending on, the needs of the students, and give them certain things. There's, people learn in different ways. And if I just said, oh yeah, start on page 1 of Samandal and go to page 30, they'll be like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. It's boring. So I try and mix it up between all the stuff I've learned as a professional and a teacher. And I don't like to be bored either. I'll go, well, let's do the scales. Let's do the scale up one way and let's come back down another scale, you know, and let's just mix it up. And then let's put some grooves with it. Don't just play the scale. Like, let's add a groove, So I try and mix it up so it's fun and engaging, because that's kind of how I am. I'm like, I was a fidgety, still am fidgety, but fidgety youngster who was bored very quickly, and I needed to be, engaged. So I try to do that with my students. And I do tell them, like, you do the work, you do what I say, and you're going to do really well. And the ones that have done what I said have done very well. Like, they're in conservatories and they're out there working right now. And some of the schools here, they know that I take students, and they send me the girl students because there isn't a girl teacher at their school. So, a woman mentor. So a lot of my colleagues have been sending me students, thinking that it might be good for them to, work with a female. And when I was teaching at Riverdale Country, I was co-teaching the jazz band. I made sure that those girls who were very shy in the jazz band got solo time. I don't think it's the boys' fault. It's just their nature. They're like, no, she doesn't want to take a solo. I'm like, you're answering for her, and I'm asking her to take a solo, and this is her time. This is her time right now to take a solo. And they would listen. There was this she was middle school, but she was in the high school jazz band, classical pianist. I could relate to this because she's like so afraid not to, like to play a wrong note. And I'm like, you got to play wrong notes. Like, this is really important for your improv. You're going to have to just dig in. And now she's playing, she's kind of a leader now, like 3 years later, she's leading. And I'm proud of her, Yeah.
Something just came to mind that I'm just wondering how many school teachers, we're talking grade school or middle school teachers, and those teachers deserve accolades for their jobs and teaching young ones music, which I think is fantastic. But how many of them influence the students as to what instruments they should possibly take on? Do they see someone who is smaller and say, well, you're not really big enough for the bass? My father, who was a professional jazz trombonist, started playing professionally when he was 15. He was of a slighter height and build, and he wanted to play guitar, you know. And of course, in that time, there wasn't guitar in a band of that nature, you know, like a marching band. And he was told by the teacher that his lips were too thin to play trombone. So, but he played trombone because he liked the thought of the 76, trombones. It was a big thing, and he took it on. But it just brings me to mind how many students are affected by people who think they mean well by steering them into a different direction.
I think that's like, it's still going on. There's other ways to inspire students to play instruments that aren't flute for the girls, clarinet for the girls because they're lighter. I don't really believe in any of that. I've never been into that kind of thing. I knew, you know, even my teacher in high school, he handed me the upright bass. I mean, if he never handed it to me, I might not have ever tried it. I know there's, when people go to school to be an educator, they teach them a way to do this. And I am hoping that who's ever doing the pedagogy is updating that as we speak, because there are smaller scale basses that you can get no problem. There's quarter size at the school, but that's rare because that school has a lot of money over here. It depends on all that too, you know, the budget, and a good, decent, small bass would be great for a young girl, or a small half-size electric bass even, you know, to start. Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping, I don't know what's going on out there in the country as a whole with how they're trying to get more girls to play, but there is more. You can see in the colleges, and it's just the teachers are mostly men still. So there's that.
We've come a long way, baby, or are we still trying to come a long way?
We're still trucking along here.
Although I'm showing my age by quoting a cigarette ad from the 70s.
That's awesome. I remember that ad. Virginia Slims, remember that one?
Virginia Slims, right? Exactly.
Amazing stuff. Oh God.
When you're hired as a side person to perform with other musicians, I love your who's who of all you played with, and it's so many of my favorites. Bucky Pizzarelli, Ken Poplawski, the list is Rini Ross days. And I saw that recently you were touring or playing with Veronica Swift, who I actually had the great pleasure of seeing at this last Saratoga Springs Jazz Festival. Boy, she's something special.
Yeah, she's amazing. I played with her in the Berkshires years ago, and we had barely a rehearsal. We had maybe an hour to get a whole concert together because we all came in from other places, got it, like just touched on like little beginnings and endings of songs, and then just did a concert. And I thought, oh my God. And I'll never forget how she counted off. I can't remember what tune it is, but she starts, here we go. One, oh wait, that's not fast enough. One, I'm like, okay, here we go. She's an amazing band leader. She knows, her history, you probably know her history with her father and all that. She learned a lot, on how to lead a band, and she can pull that stuff off so well. Like a band she's never met and leading us. And I so appreciated that because that made the whole concert tight. And then she could just sing like whatever she wanted. And she was incredible. Incredible. I was blown away working with her.
So when you're then performing with others, many of whom I listed, what is your responsibility and role as the bassist when you're performing with them and not as a band leader?
So I'm there to do the best I can as a bass player, to support them, to have all my, if I can, if they give me music ahead of time, I'll prep it. I'll listen to their recordings. I'll memorize stuff. I'll do my homework. I mean, that just makes me less anxious, especially if it's somebody I don't really know. I feel like it's my responsibility to really be there for them and not be, not come in like, oh my God, I was too busy, I couldn't listen to anything, I'm like, no, this is my job. My job is to be prepped for your gig so you can sound the best you can. And then we'll just all have a great time.
That's wonderful. And do you feel though, is there less pressure when you're then leading a band? That may be a very obvious question. Or is there different pressures to leading a band, being a side person?
Well, I can say as a band leader, I have to be so organized because there's really not a lot of time if you're doing these one-off gigs and you have all this original music. I have to send all that electronically, send them to MP3s, hope to God they'll listen to everything and prep it. When we get to rehearsal and we only have 2 hours, we got to nail it, and then we have to go to the gig. And I have to be so organized to the point of like, I feel like in my rehearsals, like make sure like I'll have snacks and some water for them so they don't leave the building. We don't want the band to go, oh, we're on a lunch break. No, you're not. Especially these one-offs, back in the day, as you know, bands used to be in one place for 2 to 4 weeks, right? 3 or 4 sets a night. We have shot one shot to get everything done. Okay. One rehearsal, if that. I mean, I can't do my stuff without at least one rehearsal. I mean, 2 would be luxurious these days because everybody's all over the place and the people I want are busy. So I have to respect their time. And then I have to do my promo. I have to do all the social media. I have to make sure all the gear is there or whatever they need. So it's it's like 5 hats. And then as a side person, I'm playing for a singer I've never worked with this weekend. I have a couple days to prep her stuff, which I will. Little less pressure, but still need to do it. I've never worked with her before. I don't want to go in unprepared. So I feel like it's important, especially these days when gigs are so hard to get and they take 100,000 emails to get one date somewhere. You hope to God that you are so organized and ready to roll and that your band is with you. The people I hire are like supportive. I can't be working with people who are not the support. I need the support as a band leader because it's hard. It's nerve wracking. Yeah, it takes a lot of energy.
I wish we could go back to the time where you had 2, 3, 4 night gigs or a week, for the very reason that magic happens or that alchemy happens differently with every performance, especially if you're getting more and more comfortable with each other. So that first night, it's exciting because it's all new, right? And as the musicians get more and more comfortable, something special really happens those subsequent nights, and it's exciting, I know, for the musicians, but it's even more exciting for the audience.
Oh, I agree with you. Maybe one day we'll go back to a week long, you're sitting in one place for a week. I think, I remember back when I first got to town, people there would be certain band leaders that you'd play with, right? And then everybody became a band leader. Every person in my band had their own project after a while. So you times that by, how many musicians are in bands, and you kind of needed to self-produce a project to stay in with the jazz world. And so there's that element. Like if you didn't do that and were only a side person, there's nothing wrong with that. But people, there was pressure. I felt the pressure to put out something. Even though I never thought I would self-produce, but I did. Yeah.
It really is such a different industry than what it used to be, for the very reason that you were touching on, is that you have to now be responsible not only just for the band or your band members or the orchestrations or getting the music to your members, is you have to do all the promotion and the all the social media, and it's a very different world. There's a little bit more control to a certain degree, but a lot more work. And I really feel for musicians nowadays, and I feel very blessed to be able to listen to such great music in this area.
Yeah, I know. You guys have there's something in the water out there.
We're trying. I keep adding it, and I keep hoping something's going to happen.
I love it. I know you guys have a lot of good things happening. I loved how you rattled off all these people's names that are like all these women that are like, really promoting jazz, which is the music that was born in our country. I think it's just important for everyone to know it, hear it, understand it, because it's beautiful stuff.
Especially like our concerts here at the library are free. Or if you go up to William Patterson to any of their jazz series, or very reasonably priced tickets where you're not paying then to go into New York City, which can be quite a lot with parking and tolls and such. Or if you want to splurge and go to New York City, where there's a number of venues of Smalls and Mesro and Birdland and to take advantage of, and it's just exciting to be in this area. But I love the fact that there are all these different festivals, and that you'll be at the Scranton Festival this weekend.
I know. I feel I'm very lucky. Look, I'm one of the lucky ones that I can play the bass, in different places and enjoy it. And it's really joyful. Like I'm really excited about this festival this weekend.
Well, I really appreciate your taking the time to talk with me today. This has been a lot of fun, and I am looking forward to hearing you perform again live. And I hope our paths cross again very soon in the jazz world.
Thanks, Patty.